Now, Nigel, I was watching your show earlier as the news broke about this extraordinary statement released by Harry and Meghan, effectively calling on Jeremy Clarkson to lose his journalism career altogether. They have not accepted his apology. And your response really interested me, Nigel, because you were hinting, and I'd love you to elaborate on it, but you were hinting that Clarkson should never have apologised.
Yes, I think to have apologised in the way that he did was wrong. I mean, you can say, look, if what I wrote upset you, I'm sorry, but I wrote it because I believed it at the time, or I was making a sort of sort of analogy with Game of Thrones. But to say that from your toenails to the follicles on your head, you apologise with your whole being and soul, and you can't appease bullies. And these people who talk about compassion and love, and all of these things that she puts herself up, Meghan, to be the high priestess of, actually, she represents, and laughing boy Harry with her, represent the new left in America. They are about destroying their opposition. They use the opportunity to accuse him of being a conspiracy theorist, a misogynist, a hate monger. And you begin to understand this is what cancel culture is actually all about.
Nigel Farage has dropped another bombshell, accusing Meghan Markle and Prince Harry of wanting Jeremy Clarkson to be completely destroyed. It's a shocking statement, but one that raises big questions about the power the Sussexes now wield over public opinion, the media, and even speech itself. Tonight we're going to break down what Farage really meant, and whether his warning about the Sussexes' growing influence is more real than anyone wants to admit. It started with one article. Jeremy Clarkson wrote a piece about Meghan Markle in The Sun. One that was crude, nasty, and quickly condemned by millions. But when the dust settled, what followed wasn't just outrage. It was annihilation. Shows were cancelled. Clarkson's future at Amazon was thrown into doubt. His reputation shredded. Clarkson publicly apologized twice. Once in writing and again directly to Harry and Meghan. But according to Nigel Farage, that wasn't enough. Farage claims the couple didn't want an apology. They wanted destruction. He says their team pushed behind the scenes to ensure Clarkson lost contracts and credibility, turning a moment of outrage into a career-ending crusade. Nigel Farage is one of Britain's most outspoken political figures, and in his latest remarks he didn't hold back. He says this isn't about defending Clarkson's comments, it's about defending freedom of speech. Farage argues that Meghan and Harry are creating a dangerous precedent, where anyone who criticizes them risks public cancellation and professional ruin. He said, and I quote, "They don't just want to silence him, they want to destroy him." To Farage, this is more than a feud, it's a warning. He calls it the rise of a royal cancel culture, powered by emotion, amplified by social media, and executed through fear. And when you look at what's happened to Clarkson, it's hard to argue that the consequences weren't devastating.
It isn't about disagreeing and asking for backtracks and apology. It's about destruction of those with different views. And if King Charles thinks for 1 minute he can buy off Harry and stop him writing another book, and one after that about his affair with Camilla when he was married to Diana, because that's what this is really all about, I think. If he thinks he can appease Prince Harry, surely the way they've responded to Jeremy Clarkson tells you that can never be done. And any thought of peace talks ahead of this coronation would be, in my opinion, a terrible mistake. Better to act decisively now from the king, to strike these people out for what they are. Otherwise, the more you give in, the more they will attack.
Farage paints a picture of the Sussex operation as a finely tuned machine, one that feeds on outrage. Every attack, every headline, every tearful interview, it all fuels the brand. He claims Harry and Meghan have mastered the art of weaponizing emotion. They talk about compassion, but wield cancellation like a sword. And whether it's the British tabloids, Piers Morgan, Jeremy Clarkson, or anyone else who crosses their narrative, the playbook stays the same: outrage. Punish. It's a strategy that's made them rich, but it's also made them feared. Even other public figures hesitate before mentioning the Sussexes now, not because of royal respect but because of reputation risk. This is where Nigel Farage's warning really hits home. When outrage becomes a weapon and forgiveness no longer matters, what happens to free speech? Farage argues that Britain is entering a new era, where public figures live in fear of offending the Sussexes, and where disagreement equals destruction. He says, "You don't have to like Clarkson's words, but you should fear the precedent of erasing people for saying them." And that's where the real battle lies, not between Clarkson and Meghan, but between accountability and annihilation.
Could not agree more, Nigel. I mean, that piece at the Sunday Times at the weekend, I thought it was completely delusional. Reconciliation talks with Prince William in the next 4 months after everything I've said. And I think it's time for Charles, and I know he's having a really, really difficult start to his reign. He's still grieving his mother, of course, and taking on this huge role. But he has to realise, Nigel, the appeasement strategy of Harry and Meghan has not worked because he's been trying to appease these idiots for months. And they've still unleashed, even though he welcomed them back into the bosom of the royal family for the late Queen's funeral.
Yeah, there is no appeasing evil like this. And it's a very strong word to use, but it's evil. To see that response, the words they used tonight, they want Clarkson to be destroyed as they wanted Piers Morgan before that to be destroyed. She is overtly political. She represents this new left in America. Look, she's going to be running for Congress or Senate within 5 years. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
No, you're right. You're right.
And of course, Harry by then, I mean, talk about spare. He really will be the spare by then. She'll have no use. She'll have no use for him whatsoever.
Farage isn't defending cruelty. He's defending the right to make mistakes, apologize, and move on. And in 2025, that's becoming a radical position. Even outside the Farage circle, more people are questioning the Sussex approach. Once the symbols of modern empathy, Harry and Meghan are increasingly seen as vindictive, people who preach kindness while demanding vengeance. Polls show their popularity sliding, not just in the UK but globally. The more they attack, the less sympathy they gain. And the Clarkson saga only deepened that divide. Farage calls it poetic irony that their campaign to destroy Clarkson might end up hurting their own brand more than his. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Nigel Farage may be provocative, but he's asking the question many are afraid to say out loud. Have Meghan and Harry gone from victims to villains? At what point does seeking accountability become seeking vengeance? And how long can a public image of compassion survive when it's built on punishing others? Farage's warning isn't just about Clarkson, it's about culture. About what happens when forgiveness disappears, when outrage becomes profitable, and when royalty becomes a weapon. Do you agree with Nigel Farage? Did Meghan and Harry go too far with Clarkson, or was it justified payback? Subscribe for more fearless breakdowns, royal analysis, and commentary that tells the truth others won't. Because the conversation shouldn't be silenced, it should be heard.